I still remember the phone call 20 years ago when Blair called from Colorado and said that I believe he said he'd been out in his summer kitchen and it had come to him that the church needed to put on a fair.
And in this fair, he just described all these things we were going to do there and what we were going to, present. And, most of these things did not really exist at that point. It was definitely a word of faith.
Effort at a Christian, intentional Christian community was an effort toward a reintegration of life, specifically integrating economy into a larger context of society. We wanted to restore some of the things that had been lost. It didn't mean we wanted to go back to the Middle Ages, but we did want to restore some things that had been lost even in the last 150 years. And to do that, we first started out trying to become more self-sufficient and complete in agricultural endeavors. But we soon saw that even if we raised all of our own food, we still could not be a completely self-sustaining economy within the larger context of the society that we had chosen as one to work out our lives in. And that's when the idea of moving forward in the areas of self-sustaining crafts became an important part of our endeavors. And the question was, even as we began to move forward, what is the best way to do this, and how do we integrate these crafts into an agricultural life when we're not doing this within a larger culture that embraces these same values. And we didn't want to become cloistered and isolated. What we had done was exciting to us. It was fulfilling. It brought us a great deal of not only joy and happiness, but a great deal of meaning and purpose in life. And we wanted, if possible, to share our joy with others, even outside our community. We didn't feel severed from the normal human emotions of loving your neighbor and having an interest in people outside our community. We felt more and more connected to them in many ways, and we wanted to share our life with them. And so we wanted to get away from any notion of a cloistered community or an isolated community, and yet we wanted to move forward in this self-sustaining completeness and integrity and wholeness that characterizes life. And suddenly I can remember sitting in that summer kitchen in our old cabin in Colorado, where we were struggling there to become self-sufficient in farming. And I was sitting in front of at a table in front of the wood-burning cook stove, the Elmira cook stove, and the fellow who managed the overall farming efforts there. We were talking, and I was telling him about how I had been reading a history of the Middle Ages, and it told about guilds and crafts and such. And I found some of what it said very exciting. People from all over Europe would come to these craft fairs, and it was not just an economic thing, it was a social thing. People renewed ties, families came together. It was sort of a family reunion for families all over Europe. And there was the sale of wares, of quality wares, but there was a celebration of the community that people then shared. And I said to this brother, I said, you know, we could do the same thing. And I felt such an excitement. It seemed like such a fair would give focus to all of our efforts. It would be like an end-of-the-year harvest celebration where we'd bring all of our academic endeavors, all of our agricultural endeavors, all of our craft endeavors to a place of completion, and we would celebrate that completion, that wholeness that is life with our neighbors. And it would bring us into greater contact with our neighbors. And I can't remember anything that was more exciting to us in those days than the thought of doing such a thing, and what it might mean for us as a people. And we began to share it. I believe that was 1987, the fall of 1987. And by August of 1988, we had our first fair. And all over our community, people began to say, well, I'm going to try to do some blacksmithing. And others would say, I want to try to learn more about spinning and weaving. And others would we're going to try woodworking. And there were just so many things we'd never thought of. But the young people got excited about it. The families got excited about it. There was an incredible energizing of our entire community and the individuals and the families. People worked together with each other. older brothers and sisters mastered certain skills and crafts and themselves, and then began to teach younger children the crafts and skills. And there was such a devotion that you could see in those young children, and they were so enthusiastic about it and so excited about it. And then we had our first fair where we were bringing all these things together, and I can remember a little card table with a red and white checkered wax tablecloth on it with just a handful of blacksmithing implements on it. And we looked at that, and we were so excited about that and so full of gratitude. We almost cried. We thought that was just wonderful that we just had that handful. And then we'd go to another table, and there would be something else on that table, just a few things. And now looking back, it seems so sparse. But then it was just full of the new beginnings of life. And I think there were 1,800 people there at that first fair. And I remember telling somebody then, I said, before the first fair, I said, someday there's going to be 10,000 people come to this fair. And some people laughed at that, but I believe we had nearly 15,000 at the last fair.
Well, I can remember when we first talked about having the fairs. To me, as a homeschooling mom, the first thing that struck me was it was going to set a goal and a time of completion for the school year. And it was like, at that time there'll be a sense of wrapping it all up and presenting the wholeness of whatever we had completed. And craft at first was a different perspective for me. But all of a sudden, craft became what we can do with our hands that's needful to our life. And so everybody started just contemplating, what would this mean? And well, obviously you need clothing. And somebody else said, well, we would need shoes. And other people said, well, we'd have to know how to make furniture. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew as people began to consider what would sustain life in terms of things that we could make with our hands. Or what would be meaningful things that we could make with our hands? And how could we incorporate that into the education of our children? And so at the beginning, it was just like opening so many packages. It was just so many new ideas popping up here and there. And there were some funny things, and there were some hard things, and there were some bumps in the road along the way, but it was a real learning experience in a lot of ways. And I can remember with the kids, it became a real avenue for the developing and maturing of character. Just the idea that I'm going to make something with my hands that expresses me, expresses what I believe. And so I'm not just going to stick it together or do something that'll get by, but I'm going to do the best I can. And when I put it out there, I want it to express who I am, what I feel, what I believe, even if it's a box or a blouse or a blanket. Somehow I'm going to put enough of myself and my feeling into it that I have expressed myself through it. And so you can see how that would really help mature children, just the pushing through all the way to the finish and to do the best that they could.
Well, they say it's not what the boy does to the wood, but what the wood does to the boy. And I as a kid, when we were first beginning the crafts and moving toward the fair, I'd hear that. It's not what the boy does to the wood, but what the wood does to the boy. As I grew older and learning the craft, and I think that applies to all of the different crafts, not just woodworking, but I began to see what that really meant. Because as a child, growing into an adolescent and a young adult, there is a lot of teaching besides just woodworking, or besides just the craft that you're learning, that is going into that person, the student. He's learning something about craft, the art of work, and he's investing something of himself in the project that he's doing, and so there's something of himself that other people are going to see when they see what he made, and it's going to show care, perseverance, integrity, or else it's going to show sloppiness, bad work habits, and such, and it's not going to speak positively of his character. And so there's a lot of character building that's going on at the same time as the instruction in the craft, because that child is learning to work diligently and to make a craft that is going to speak something of the life he lives.
Well, I mean, I'd say there's 3 or 4 things that it does for the educational program. One is it provides, I guess, what I'd call a coordinating focus for the goals, for the year's worth of work. It also provides a finish line where kids work towards and anticipate the completion of their crafts, their writings, everything that that they work towards during the school year. And one of the reasons that's important is because it gives the kids a sense of accomplishment and a sense of completion. And at the same time, it gives us a context where we can assess and evaluate their progress and their growth that's exemplified in the projects, the writings, the crafts, and so forth that they bring to the fair for display and for demonstration. So in that sense, it's not peripheral, it's critical to what we do educationally.
Even in our homeschooling, the fair really provided a context to be inspired about things like math, because I was very into weaving, and anybody who's ever warped a loom and threaded those hundreds of needles and dealt with thousands of threads and getting them in just right knows that it takes a lot of math. And suddenly my math began to move forward in leaps and bounds because I wanted to be able to learn the simplest way to figure out how to warp my loom.
Our Sewing for the Fair is what really gave us a focus, something to try to get our skills up the best we could that year for whatever projects that she was going to make for the fair, and I made some too. But one of the things I found out about it was how much relationship it gave to her and I to have something to do. I mean, we'd hurry with washing the dishes and things so that we could sit down and sew our little projects that we're sewing.
It was always just special to see the boys come in with their little tools, 2 or 3 tools, and their dads with them, because we were always encouraging the dads to come because we wanted to teach the fathers so they could teach their sons. But we were kind of in the stage where everybody was teaching everybody at the same time, and the Lord was just helping us all.
I was 12 years old, 1988, and they said, well, what project do you want to build for the fair? This was our first annual fair. And I said, well, I think they brought us some pictures of certain things. And I said, well, I want to build a cedar chest. It was all dovetailed on the corners and stuff. So I said, okay. I mean, that was a big project, I think, for a 12-year-old, but I was excited about it, really excited.
So one of the first things we did was to learn to make dovetails. We made dovetails and we practiced them. And he wanted to make a cedar chest. Of course, he was only 12 years old, and his cedar chest is big, pretty big. I guess we could have started with one smaller, but he wanted to make a big blanket cedar chest. And we felt the grace to do it, and he certainly felt the inspiration to do it too. So we started working on that and pushed it through, and I just remember the enthusiasm that he had.
the skills that I was taught when I was young, I can now pass those on to 12-year-olds, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds.
But just, we didn't know, what God was going to do with that first beginnings and in his heart and his life. Now Frank is one of our main craftsmen for making furniture.
And it's neat to be able to see some of the same zeal that I had when I was 12 in some of these kids.
The kids love coming to classes. They're already talking about their quilts they want to make next year. They haven't even finished the ones for this year, and they're talking about, oh, let's do this and let's do that. And really, some of it's making it a possibility, and some of the excitement is with this applique that Gabrielle Nolan, my niece, one of the girls in the community, she's an artist, and she's found a place for her art, drawing pictures that we're appliquing, and it's really it's even added another dimension that's been a lot of fun.
Thanksgiving weekend, it really is the highlight of our year. And the month of November, it really is. It's a beehive. It's a blur a lot of times, because we are doing all that we can do to help serve the best food for our wonderful visitors and friends.
Food to be good, and you want everything to be just right. It's like having company. You want your company to be blessed. You want them to feel at home, and you want them to feel excited and learn new things.
Well, I love the fair time. I get to be an international cook during the fair. I cook Mexican food, I bake bread, I make soup.
We have 1,000 pounds today.
Yeah, well, we didn't always have the 40, 50 piece orchestra and 90 voice choir and all the instruments. We started out, a number of us young guys working together on the farms. We'd get together. We had this old green well house that we thought had just great acoustics, and we'd sit in there and sing I'll Fly Away and Uncloudy Day and harmonize, and that's really where we learned how to do all the harmonies. And we'd out in the fields on the plows, we'd practice yodeling, and we even got to where we yodel in harmony. And so it was, we'd sing on our parents' front porch, and I remember we'd have all the turkeys would all come up and gather around every time we'd start singing, and they'd come stand on the roost on the porch rails, and one of them would come over and lay his head in Amanda's lap while we were singing. So that's where we got started.
When I came to be a part of the community, a lot of the other young people had been singing together for quite a few years, and I knew that on some level I had some musical ability. I could play the guitar a little bit, I could sing, but I could not sing or play in front of anybody. And I think in my mind it was always music was always associated with some sort of performance. And when I came to the community, I saw young people who, it really wasn't a performance, it was really an expression of who they were. It was their life together. And as I became involved in life, and God started getting a hold of my heart and life, I really did have something to sing about. And when I saw them, it wasn't a performance, it pulled something out of me, and it brought me into a relationship with them. And pretty soon we were standing up, and a few years later, a person who couldn't even sing in front of just 2 people was standing up at the fair, because I really did have something to sing about, and was able to sing with my brothers and sisters in harmony, and we had a lot to sing about and a lot to share and a lot to be thankful for.
I was very excited to sing when I first sang at the fair, but I will admit that the first time I started singing, I looked at all the people, and my voice felt like it was coming through a pinched straw. I was like, ah! It took some time to warm up to, this isn't about me, people looking at me, it's about what I'm giving to them. We shall overcome.
the kids are, because they are part of our community life, that is a community life. It's us and our kids and our elderly people, we're all working together. The kids, it was one of the most joyous time in their life, if not the joyous time, being there in the evening, being there into the night, see where they can help, because they feel a part, they feel it's theirs, and that's a place of participation. They end up helping you and working with you and learning what to do, and it become a mutually working together, and it's wonderful. They love it, the kids and us, all of us together. We've been in it for 20 years, and it's been nothing but a wonderful experience, because it really bringing us together closer, because everybody doing it because they love it.
The fair, it's kind of course it's moving in rhythm with the seasons, and the natural year ends when you're farming. It ends that time of year. Thanksgiving, which is the first Thanksgiving for the harvest, but it was a harvest of all of our labors, even beyond our gardening and farming. It was a harvest of the crafts and all of our efforts through the year. It was a real tangible goal, and still is today. Well, if we had just done these things for ourselves in a corner somewhere, I think that it wouldn't be near the fulfillment that it is in sharing it. That if it was us making our furniture and us making our cheese and us just living a secluded life apart from the folks that were surrounded by our neighbors, it would lose a whole lot of meaning.
And I think the thing that makes us so happy about these fairs, I've told my wife this every year as we walk around the fairgrounds, is to see all those smiling, happy faces of people who've come to visit us and share our life with us. And there's nothing that makes me happier than to see hope and happiness and laughter and smiles on so many thousands of faces. And it's become something very rewarding to all of us.